Okay, so for the plan today is to get the last 2 of the 8 copper lines from refrigerant lines that come from that LG unit right there to the 4 different mini splits. We've already done 6 out of the 8 that are totally insulated, and these will be double insulated. And what my wife and I are doing today is finishing up the last 2, and I'll do a little time lapse of that so you can see. But in the meantime, what we've got is these refrigerant lines that come out of the back of this unit. One of the smaller of the lines, there are 4 of these smaller lines that are 1/4 of an inch in diameter, and the other 4 are 3/8 of an inch in diameter. The original insulation, which is like a white foamy kind of insulation that the manufacturer sent attached to the copper refrigerant lines, over time has become completely obliterated by the elements. And whoever had the house before tried to put some kind of goop on there, and you'll see parts where I'm trying to get rid of some of that had melted through and ended up on the copper, and just a mess. In the New Mexico sun, it just got absolutely destroyed. It's pretty much all down to the copper now. You do see here where the lines go into the side of the house, where they go down into the wall to the mini split unit on the inside of the house, a little bit of this residual material that's been undisturbed by the elements because it's kind of covered up by this plastic around it. So I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to try to dive that deep down. As long as that's still insulated, I'm going to leave it alone. But all the other stuff on top, we're going to completely replace with what we're doing today. The smallest rubber insulation I could find was 1/2 inch. So there's this gap that you can see. If you try to just close up this rubber around the 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch copper lines, you have this gap. So we're going to close that gap with the first layer of insulation, which is this insulating tape. And that insulating tape will form you got the small diameter of your pipe. This insulation will create a region around that to give it more girth, and then the 1/2 inch insulation will go around that, and we'll wrap that up, and we'll kind of go through how we're doing that. So the first thing we're going to do is pre-wrap these tubes with the pipe wrap insulation tape that I showed you earlier. This will be cut into various lengths depending on how much bend there is in the copper. And my wife is cutting about stick of gum sized strips of this foil tape that has paper on one side that you peel off to reveal the sticky side, and then the other side is just reflective. And that is shown here. You can see the brand. I just picked this up at Home Depot. It was like 18 or 19 bucks a roll. It's not cheap. But this will be used throughout the whole project, both to temporarily secure, I say temporarily, but it'll last. It'll secure this pipe wrap insulation tape in place long enough for me to get the bigger rubber insulation around that, and then we'll wrap the rubber insulation with the same tape cut into much larger strips and go around it that way. You'll see that in as we go forward. Okay, so when you're going around these corners, like not corners, but these bends in the copper, if you cut a long piece of that insulating tape, it doesn't work well. So I cut shorter pieces. Like I'll probably do another 4 or 5 inch piece here, and then when we get down to the longer stretches of this copper, then we can go for longer pieces. But that's how we do that part, and we're going to do that and get this whole length done on both of these, and then we'll come back and do the big insulation. Okay, and so just following that same routine of cutting that foil insulation tape going along here, Bonnie is cutting those pieces for me in advance, and couldn't do this without her help. I recommend if you have a helper, especially like her. And don't forget, fellas, to stop and kiss your wife. Yep, you got to do that while you're working, so that'll help. And we go along here. This is the first rung we're getting done, getting it all the way over to where it goes down the side of the wall into the mini split unit, and then we'll go back and then we'll do the next one after this. And just a note on these stick of gum size strips of tape that Bonnie's cutting for me. I'm not putting those on every single surface of that foam insulating tape. It's only every 2 or 3 inches or so, just enough to hold it on there more or less as needed. Okay, and then from there it's time to put on the rubber insulation, the 1/2 inch rubber insulation. You can see this has the opening with some adhesive that you pull back, and then it sticks to itself once you have it ready. This is the brand right here, so you can see what we used. And I start by putting this on the entire, they come in 6-foot lengths, and I put them on the whole thing first just to make sure everything fits and that there's no problems. Right here you can see where I did not insulate that area where we had some goop. It was going to be too much girth, and so that little area I just left out. So going along here, just making sure this whole thing fits, and I'm gonna do that all the way to the end of the 6-foot run and then go back over it the other way just to make sure that that is all gonna fit and not gonna run into and snag any other lines once it's in place. And then once this is all obvious that it'll fit, we'll start to peel back that adhesive tape, which you'll see me start doing right here, beginning to pull back the adhesion and kind of going along and closing it as we go. So don't pull off all the adhesion at once, just pull off a little bit, go down, close it up. It was a little hard to see here, so I got another clip with my phone, which the resolution wasn't great, but that's coming up here in a second where you can see Bonnie closing it up. She's doing a better job than I am by taking her time, and she's really peeling back slowly, closing up the gap. And so do that all the way down until you've got the whole piece finished like that, and then it'll be ready to wrap with the foil tape. And then we're only doing these 6 feet at a time, so these foil strips of tape that Bonnie's cutting are that long right there, enough to wrap around onto itself just like that. And she's going to cut a bunch of those, and she will be handing those to me. Now here's an example what not to do. Do not peel off all the paper like I just did here. Watch this, because when I go around, there are other things nearby that I am going to snag with that tape, and then suddenly I can't. It's stuck to other things, so I've ruined this piece. I got to peel this one off. And don't do that. Don't peel off the whole piece of paper. Instead, just peel back a little bit of the paper, just enough to get it started on the adhesion. And you'll see what I do here, where you just leave it stuck to the paper, start it at one place, and then slowly unwrap the paper as you go around, because then you can use the paper to fish up underneath things like I'm doing right here under this other piece of line that needs to be insulated as well. And then that keeps the tape from getting all gummed up and stuck to itself and ruining it in the process. And so it'll make it all the way around now. It'll stick to itself. It's sticking to the rubber, and there you go. That's how we're going to do this all the way down. Okay, and then as we go here, I'm just doing this where each piece overlaps the one before it by about 1/4 of an inch, so that there's none of the rubber material is exposed. And so going around here and then doing the next 6-foot section. Again, Bonnie is doing all the work of cutting all the strips and handing them to me, so we're pretty efficient this way. Each one of these runs took about 45 minutes, I think. And don't forget to, you gotta always remember to stop and kiss your wife. It's very important. I mentioned that once before. And here we go. We're gonna finish this one and then get on to the next one. Now on this last one here, my time lapse ran out, the battery died or something, but this is just more of the same. We're wrapping up that last second line. Now I just want to point out too, you see a third line there. That's actually the power cable. So there are power cables that go to each of the mini splits too. Haven't insulated those, don't know if I will. Maybe I'll wrap them in silver tape, but basically this was wrapping up the project here, getting this last set of insulation done on the last line, and we're just about finished here. Alrighty, well, all done. There's the unit back there. Got all the lines insulated now and ready to deal with summer and winter. Yep, there it is. It's all done. I think we spent several $100s on this project. I think all the material came in about $400 or $500 total, and a lot of time. Took us 4 days working half days. My knees were getting it was a little rough at the end, but there you go. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll answer them. Thanks for watching.